If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm just like, what the heck? First I thought it was one of my bison that had gotten out. You know, that's the only thing I could think of. That image that is just kind of burned in my mind, I just saw it, and it kind of moved back and forth. There was an arm, and you could see like a gap in between the body and the arm, and I mean, it was huge. 7-8 feet tall.
This is the Cryptic Creatures Podcast. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is my co-host Todd. What's going on?
You remember the guy in Michigan that we were talking about getting a hold of and speaking to?
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
We're going to talk to him on this show tonight.
He's not that far away from us.
He's not. We do have an invite to go up there and check out his place when we can get up there.
Yeah. So we gotta schedule that.
We'll get up there and do some recording if he lets us and put something together.
Let's find out if he will.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, let's get him.
Joe, thanks for coming on and talking to us today.
No problem. I do appreciate you guys reaching out to me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Sure.
Brian and I had been talking prior on an episode about your encounter that had happened up in Michigan, and we were wanting to reach out and get a hold of you. You had moved into the property where you're at. You said, I think you told me in 2015, is that right?
15, 16 time frame, yeah.
Why don't you just start and tell us what started happening, what you noticed first, what all you guys have seen, dealt with, up into, what just happened recently with your encounter.
When I first purchased this place, it's secluded. I mean, not too many people know it's back here. We're about a half a mile off the road and way back up in the hills here in the moraine. Pretty, as you can see back behind me over here, it's pretty dense. And over the course of just a few years, I'd been clearing, trees and brush all the way around the house. The house had been pretty well unkept, maintenance wise. The gentleman before us that was here that actually built the home, he had some health issues, so the house was starting to see its age. And I started putting in fencing and just clearing trails and whatnot, just to get it to where it meets my needs. And probably about the third day that we came up here, on our porch, have a wraparound porch. And on the other side of the porch area, there was some footprints. And we're talking, this is early part of the year. This is an early part of the year when we first looked at this. So there was some dust on the deck. It was probably about an inch thick or so. And you could see these bare footprints. And you could see some handprints on the windows. But the handprints were like two of mine. We just thought it was really odd that there would be just barefooted footprints up here, and they were extremely large. I'm not talking 12, 13 inches. I mean, when I measured it, it was more like 16 and a half inches. And, I didn't really understand what it was. It just was a bare footprint, and it looked as if they were moving along the window, like peeking in. And I just thought that was just, extremely odd. But the house had been for sale for a while, so anybody could have come up here. And that was kind of the first inclination that something, as I look back on it, maybe that's something is what I was just wondering. And we would hear strange noises, just loud clunks out in the woods, almost as if, trees were getting knocked down, almost like a baseball bat type sound on the wood, on the trees. moaning, just some really odd sounds. And I lived here, like I've lived in this area my entire life growing up. So I'm pretty familiar with all the game trails and things like that because I actually grew up about 2 miles to the north of this property. And, I've traveled it quite extensively since I was a small child. But I did a stint in the service and, got a little bit of background in the military. And when I came back here, this was the house that we settled on after leaving Montana. So being here, they saw the footprints, as I said, and it was a few weeks, maybe even a few months. And I'll tell you, I think it was the following year, about the same time frame, maybe a little bit warmer climate. We had left and I'd repainted the deck and put some stain on it, started sprucing up the place. And we came back and there was this huge footprint on the deck. I mean, this is not, it's fresh paint, but it was dry. But it had a footprint where we have a lot of sand around the property. And the footprint was very large. I thought it was almost comical. And it just was there, the footprint was just there in the middle of the patio, and we took a picture of it and, took a tape measure to it. And it was quite interesting. I mean, my kids all saw it. My spouse had seen it. So then I started that following fall, I started clearing this area behind me here and putting in a walk line, which would give the animals, our bison and cattle and horses, a way to get up and go around and get to the other side of our property. So I put it's just a funnel walkway. And as I was bulldozing that out, I was in a fairly large 440D end loader and, just taking out a lot of the small underbrush. And after I got done, I just felt something looking at me. And I got out of the end loader and I got down. I was in this far corner over here. And I could see, it's probably 800 feet or so. It was just a clear path all the way to the back. And I thought I saw something really large, and I'm trying to gauge what I'm seeing. And I just got down out of the loader and I just came in the house and sat down. And spouse asked me, what's going on? I said, nothing. And I just, didn't want to really alarm her or anything. And I don't really know what I saw. It was just big and it shouldn't have been there. So when I came back out and looked, she came with me and we went and looked at the area, and there was tracks that didn't have any of the fences up. There was tracks in the leaves and in the shrubbery area, not where I just cleared, but off into the brush line. And it went a pretty long way. We followed it up in the thicket, and I said, well, I'm not going to go any further with that. And after that, didn't really have any issues. Moved some chickens in and started losing a chicken here or there. Thought it was maybe a fox or a coon or a possum, because, we're in the middle of the woods. But the door was locked, and there's no other way to get into it. And the door was actually wide open. And the chicken feathers, you could see where they went back into that same area. And I thought, that's kind of interesting, Never thought of it much about it. Just figured it was just an animal. And it started happening quite often. Literally, I've been through probably 100 chickens out here in this time frame. Yeah. And it just was odd. So started, I started fencing, and I figured I'd just go ahead and fence it a little taller than the average ranch, and I put it up about 8 feet, most of our fencing,
Wow.
and I put about 8 strands of barbed wire in, so about 2 foot in between, just to keep whatever I was seeing or whatever it could have been, I had no idea.
Right.
It's pretty thick back in here. And And that was pretty much the gist of what I can tell you. And then the day that I ran into this thing, horses will alert very well. They're almost better than a dog because they see everything, they hear everything. Got really good hearing, and when they all alerted to that image that is just kind of burned in my mind, I just saw it, and it kind of moved back and forth. I didn't see the head. The shoulders seemed larger than where the head was at, unless the head was hunched down, because it's really hard to see now, but it's that telephone, that power line behind this little group of firewood, I guess that's what you could call it. There's a group of trees right here. Well, right behind that, there's like an arch, and it's like an arch of woven tree, and it's just, I don't know how somebody could bend a sapling like that without breaking it. I mean, and it's an oak, so I mean it's fairly good around, and it looked like almost like what we call in an EP setting when we make a sweat lodge. It was almost like a bow. That's what we call them, as just a bow, and it wasn't there before. The tree was straight up and down, and now it's curved, and there's kind of a big path right there that was never there before. Because I mean, it's hard to get back in there. It's thick. There's a lot of briars. The thorns are just atrocious, and they will take it takes a pretty tough skinned person to walk through there. And I don't really go into the neighbor's property at all, and that's on the neighbor's land. So I just keep my place fenced. But the day that I saw that and the horses saw it, it made a movement, and the movement was like it crossed over like it stepped over itself, like it went from left to right, and I could see the arm movement. There was an arm, and you could see like a gap in between the body and the arm, and I mean, it was huge. I mean, 7, 8 feet tall, 7.5, 8 feet tall, easily.
Wow.
And I mean, it was pretty daunting, and I'm just like, what the heck? First I thought it was one of my bison that had gotten out. And, that's the only thing I could think of, because Cody at his back is like, he's almost 7 feet to the top of his back, and I thought maybe my bull had gotten out. And I'm like, how the heck did he get out? And he was down below. And I'm looking, and it just... I could see the hair. The hair was what was interesting. It kind of looked like a red fox, like it had a reddish tint to it.
Yeah.
And the hairs kind of had a sun bleach to it, but also on the very tips, they were like black. I mean, I'm like from here to there, I'm maybe 40 yards. I'm maybe 40 yards from right here where I was at. And I have security lighting throughout the entire ranch. And I mean, it really doesn't take that long 40 paces but you got to go down in this deep valley. It's kind of got a little valley here. So as the crow flies, maybe 40, just to kind of give you some understanding what I was seeing, there was no... In this whole area right here, there's a big gate, and these are about 11 feet tall with hot wire on them. I turned the fence off, the electric fence, because I've got electric fence as well. So I've got barbed wire and electric fence and cabling, and I've got security lighting throughout the entire property. So these are like solar. I've got some solar stuff up here that it's every 20 feet. And the thing that I saw, there's the bows right there. I mean, it's literally woven. I mean, that sapling is bigger around than my arm. I mean, it's literally twisted in there. And that was not like that. I mean, that tree was straight up and down. And I put a marker where I saw the shoulders. So kind of gave me an idea about how high his shoulder height is probably 6'2". Shoulder height was 6'2". Head was probably a little, and that's hunched over. So, and I'm a little lower than that right now. So I think that's probably about 6'3" or so. That's kind of what I saw. And where he was standing at, this is hard clay. When you look at it, I just wondered if maybe if it was in the pasture and it just kind of slid out underneath. I don't really know, and just stood up. I have no idea. But as you look back in here, there's like a little trail, and it's a game trail. It's some sort of game trail. But as you walk over here, it's a swath. And I've never, I'm always out here, out on the ranch, but this trail goes a long way. And and there's a deep hole back here, and this seems like this is a converging game trail that keeps coming in through here. And
Wow.
The security lighting comes on. I keep it on all the time. I have, 24 hours a day security footage, 360 degrees all the way around the ranch. So it's just an interesting, it was very distinctive what it was doing. It was intelligent. It was not, when it turned its back on me, the only thing I can say is like the hair bristled. And as the hair bristled, the color of the animal changed. It actually changed to the fauna background, almost like it blended in with the gray sassafras trees that are kind of around here. The camouflage. It literally like disappeared in front of my eyes. It didn't it didn't just like dematerialize. It literally just camouflaged itself in.
It blended in with the trees.
Immediately. It was like, I'm like, what the hell? And the horses are looking, and all of a sudden, within just a few seconds, I posted a video, and the Blue Jays started alerting about 100 yards away down into the valley. And they were screaming loud. Like, wow. Yeah, and I'm like, so I knew I did not see something. Because, the things play tricks on you out here, your imagination sometimes. But, I wasn't expecting to see anything.
Right.
It just, the horses looked, and they looked definitely hard at what it was. And that's what made me turn and see. And I just caught a glimpse. It was seconds. But the interesting thing is, I literally had this iPad in my hand when I was taking photographs of the event, and I'm watching the animal, and what I'm seeing is where I'm turning the camera, because I literally had to be pretty quick about it, because I already had it, shooting the reverse, and I was just so dumbfounded by what I just saw, and I can't tell you what it is. I've seen a lot of different animals throughout the world, and I don't think that this was an animal. My gut instinct tells me it was intelligent, whatever it was. And I thought maybe it was somebody playing a joke, but just recently, the neighbor down the road, which is very interesting, on 33rd Street, somebody says that they saw a black bear, and it was posted on the internet. So, and I know this was no bear. We don't have bears in Southwest Michigan,
Yeah, there's not,
but I guess we do. So they say we don't know. They also said that we don't have cougars, and I know we've got cougars, and this wasn't a cougar. But whatever this thing was, it was very distinct in its movements, and it was trying to slip away. And the only thing I was thinking is there's not a lot of water right here. Now there's a natural spring back here on my property. It's just in that little walkway. And then there's the automatic watering trough. And there's no other water source.
No lakes, no rivers,
nothing within this 1,000. Well, there is a pond not too far, but there's a lot of houses down there. And then there's another pond, about 5 miles to the south of me here. And then you have the other lakes where it's you're out in the areas, but there are springs down in the valley. But up here on this hill, it's I have deer that literally come in and they drink right out of the fountain right here.
So you have a food supply.
Yeah, and there's food. So, that was kind of the other thing. And it just dawned on me that the day before, I had just gotten a load of sweet feed in for our cattle. And it smells, it's in bags, but it was in one of the barns down here. And I just wondered, if that's a possibility. Who knows? I have no idea. I'm just telling you what I saw, and it was a moment.
Yeah.
Some people say it's a life-changing moment. Somebody, I had a lot of guys say, why didn't you kill it? And I'm like, I don't think there was a big enough gun to kill that thing. I mean,
yeah, we've heard that before. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It hasn't done anything to me, and why? I hasn't really done anything to me. So I guess I really didn't care.
Right.
That's not even what I was thinking about. I just was surprised at what I saw. But that night, after, because we had some pretty good weather when I saw that thing. And that next night, we ended up getting snow. And in the middle of that blizzard, I mean, we got hit with probably 8 inches. Yeah. And it sounded like some sort of chattering, some cooking, and some. my buddy, I showed it to him, and he's like, "What the heck is that? Is that monkeys?" I told him I don't know what it is. Never heard it before, and it was like right here. I mean,
wow.
You could hear it through the bedroom window. I opened up the window and kind of just listened, and it sounded like some owls, but not really owls. I mean, I thought it was like a howler monkey or something, because I was in Panama before, and I've been down in the jungles, and the howler monkeys are pretty active, and I've heard monkeys before, but this wasn't a monkey like that. It was more of I could never even make the sound that I heard, but it was loud. I mean, it was almost guttural, and it hit you to the core, like phonics. I'm a little deaf. I wear hearing aids, but I mean, I felt it inside me, and I'm inside the house, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Infrasound.
And that's the last thing I could tell you. And then right after that, we got a huge hailstorm, and after that, and then and it's been quiet ever since. And I tell most people, I'm like, if they are what everybody seems to think that they are, there's a lot of professionals out there that think that they're,
professionals.
Yeah, that's what you got both sides of it. I'm not a professional. And I can probably tell as much bullshit as the next person. You know what I mean? And, but I got no reason to tell anybody any different on this. I mean, I'm not in it for, I just was kind of surprised you guys even reached out to me, and I've kind of contemplated not talking to you about it, because it's, it is what it is. But I think that with the things that are being brought to light with modern science and technology, and it's a strong possibility. And I can tell you what I know. I can tell you what I saw. And it's not an animal. It's not an animal. It's too intelligent to be an animal. It was direct in what it does. The only thing I could think of is its movement was too human. Its movement was too human. It was not a bear. It was not any large animal. It wasn't a cow. It wasn't my buffalo. And the Blue Jays saw it. And it was something that they were afraid of.
Oh, yeah.
Because they alerted heavily on it. And, the only time I've ever heard Blue Jays alert is when there's a predator in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask me, it would be an apex predator. But I didn't feel threatened. I really didn't feel threatened. I mean, I've picked up, tons of rocks out here just to try to get decent grass. And I've picked up all over in this area. And about once a week, I got to go out here and pick up a bunch of rocks. And not little rocks. They're good sized rocks. Fit your hand. And I'm just wondering if, where they come from,
Yeah.
And they're not being kicked up by the animals because they're not in this area. So I'm just like, okay. So
yeah,
it was just interesting.
Yeah. To say the least.
But this whole area here in Michigan, this whole region, back in the glacial shift, these moraines were dumped here by the glaciers, and there were civilizations here. Civilizations that we don't even know about. That they haven't taught us about. And I have found artifacts. I found mastodontus. I think I showed you some of that stuff. A lot of artifacts, tools, Paleolithic, older than that, 10 to 14,000, 15,000 year old artifacts. And there is a monolithic structure. There's a large telephone pole in there. About 30 yards within that, there's a shelf. There's a wall, and it's nothing but stone stacked.
Wow.
And nobody's ever lived here. Everybody I know since I was a child has always known that structure is there. This little valley. This was an ancient riverbed because there's still water up behind us. That is like a little artesian spring. So at one point, this was a water flow, and that went all the way to Lake Michigan. And this is a big bowl that I'm on top of the hill on this spur here, and in the valley, it is black muck. So this was an ancient lake at one time. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you. I can just only relate to you what I know of what I saw. And I could tell you this. Now, my bison, when I first brought him here, I made the mistake of bringing him here alone. I didn't bring the other herd in with him. I wanted the bull to kind of get the gist of it. That bull got out, and he went directly the same way that animal went. And that bull took me 12 miles, and we never touched a farmer's fence. He took me all the way to Gravel Lake, which is one of our largest and deepest lakes. I'm not going to be able to turn him around. There was no way I was going to be able to turn him around. I didn't have a phone with me. He just kind of took off. The spouse had called me. She goes, because I was going to go get the other animals. She goes, Cody took off. He got it out of the round pen. And I mean, he just destroyed my round pen as I was bringing the other cattle up. And he just took me on a walkabout all the way to the Gravel Lake and came back, and he never touched a fence.
All in the woods.
All through the woods, all on open trail. And he walked.
Wow.
He's never been out of our ranch. He knew how to get to that lake. And I don't know how he knew this, but he made it all the way and went to that other 5 mile pond, about 5 miles from here. Went to the pond, walked around the pond. There's a huge island on it, and then crossed one road into the next block of woods, crossed the next road, and then into the Gravel Lake. Turn around and came right back this way. And by 5:30 in the morning, neighbor had called, and she says, "Hey, Cody's back at the other ranch." Because I left him at one of the neighbor's properties that I knew in one of his big fields, and he made it all the way back home.
Wow.
And it just amazed me. And, as I'm thinking about this, if that buffalo could make that, I mean, almost 3,000 pound buffalo. Nobody saw him. Nobody.
Yeah, that means there can be
You betcha.
very easily be a larger one.
Easily.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easily. It could be easy. And when I recognized that and found these trails, and I'm telling you, I've been through this whole block my entire life. I know where every little nook and cranny is. There's some really interesting features out here that some people have never even been on their own property out in the back because it's deep. It's very deep. It's very. People don't look at Southwest Michigan as being mountainous. The terrain is very rough, especially up here on the moraine. This glacier has dumped boulders, size of this truck. But there's actually ancient civilizations out there that are still setting in the woods that nobody's ever messed with, and I've seen them, and there's ancient trails through here that, older than time, and I know that those trails probably were done, were used no different than the Native Americans, Paleolithic Indians, or even early first traders here, and if that buffalo can disappear like that and nobody sees him, I mean, he literally walked into a community on Gravel Lake, which is all Chicagoan people, went down and drank and turned around and walked back. I followed him the whole way. Just walked with him. I couldn't, turn him. I just asked him what he was doing. And he's very intelligent. He's an intelligent animal. They're like they're like an elephant. They don't forget. They're an ancient species. When I look at this, every day I get up and I look out when I come out and I look right there and I'm just like expecting to see something now, and I haven't seen anything since.
Keep looking because you never know. And I
think it's probably best for me just to leave it alone,
Yeah, probably.
But I just, I'm not, I'll give it an offering or something. If it wants it, it can have whatever it wants because I'm not going to stop it. Wants to eat one of those cows? Go ahead, buddy. Just don't eat me. That's all I care about. And I don't think so. Like I said, I didn't feel threatened. The horses didn't spook. They didn't run. They just looked. That's what shocked me.
You think he was just coming out there to check out your fence?
I don't know.
What's going on?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I just know that what I saw was something I probably will never see again in my lifetime.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't
say that. Yeah.
It sounds like you might see more going on around in there.
It's interesting. I'm just telling you, it's just interesting, and I couldn't tell you. I just couldn't tell you what I actually saw. I could tell you what I saw, how big it was, but it was not a four-legged animal. It was on two legs. And I just thought, okay, interesting. So that's the best I could do for you, fellas.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, and I've had a lot of people, comment about it, but I just, I try to keep quiet about it. I mean, it is what it is.
I don't blame you.
And it's funny because just every once in a while you'll hear some interesting sounds out here, and I'm just, I never worry about anything out here. It's just, it is what it is.
You had told us earlier before we actually got you on the show here to record today that you didn't really see the face of this creature, get a good look at the face. Did you notice a smell or anything like that, though?
Why don't you say that? It is like a musky, hot, stinky. I've only caught a whiff of it a couple of times, and it'll take your breath away. It is. I think the only other time I've ever smelled something worse than, not even worse than that, but close to it, is spending 55 days in the northern border of Iraq and no shower. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
and one pair of clothes and having dysentery, if that tells you anything. So yeah, that wet, like a wet, dirty, musky It's the worst thing you'll ever smell in your life. But I'll tell you what, I've smelled some dead things. You ever smell your dog when it got out of the woods and went and rolled in a dead animal?
Yeah.
And worse than that.
Ugh.
Worse than that. And I have to keep my dogs in quite a bit because they do alert, because I've got healers here, Texas healers, that work the cattle, and they don't venture off in that neck of the woods at all. At all.
Joe, it's interesting that you talked about how the hair seemed to change color or stand up, can blend in, and by doing this, something weird they do with their hair or their fur or whatever you want.
Right. It's almost chameleon like. It's like and the hair wasn't thick like you would think. It's almost like you couldn't really see the skin, but you saw the hair. The hairs were not super thick. You had different layers. It was almost like it was blowing a coat, if that tells you anything. Almost like blowing a coat, like our buffalo, like the bison, it blows its hair. And that's kind of what I thought was interesting about this animal or this creature that I saw. The coat looked like it was well groomed. I could see it that perfect. It was almost like it was groomed, like it had groomed itself, or like it kept it. It wasn't like all matted down like a cow would be laying in something. It was almost like it kept itself pretty well groomed, and it just.
Yeah, we've heard that before.
It just stuck out. It just stuck out because the change of the weather, we're coming out of winter basically, and everything looked dead, and this thing looked vibrant. Like it had been combed and brushed and groomed, and its hair stood up and it bristled, and just as it turned its back, and as soon as it turned its back, as soon as it crossed over and turned, it just disappeared right in front of my eyes. I'm watching it, and I probably wasn't, looking at it like I'm looking at you guys. I was looking at it and just kind of shocked,
Oh, yeah.
I just took it for what it was, and within seconds, I mean, man, it wasn't even 35 seconds, 35 seconds. Because I've got a timer on the time that I was running the video from the horses to that. It was 35 seconds, and it was gone.
That's a good amount of time, actually. That's quite a bit of time,
Yeah.
It is. But I'm saying from when I got out of the vehicle, looking at the animals and the horses turned, and then by the time I got to here, going, what the heck can I see? I was like, holy cow. When I spun around and I'm just like, what am I seeing? And I'm just kind of looking, and I'm like, oh man, buffalo's out. And when it crossed over itself, it's like its leg. It just turned, like it crossed over and turned its back to me, standing right there. And when it turned its back, I'm like looking through, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 little trees that are less than 5 inches across, 6 inches across, diameter. It's standing behind it. I mean, I could see it plain as day. But when it turned its back, it just gone. And within 2 seconds of that, the Blue Jays were screaming about 100 yards off. And that's down in the valley. Is it BRFO? Bigfoot researchers?
BFRO, yeah.
Yeah. That gentleman, I forgot, Matt. I guess his name is Matt. I don't really.
Yeah.
They contacted me, and he was just kind of shocked a little bit by it, And and like I said, I'm kind of the devil's advocate. What I saw, I couldn't tell you. I know what I'd like to say that I saw, but I can tell you it's more human than it is animal, just because the nature of how it moved. The nature of it was to slip away without me noticing it. And I think probably the average person wouldn't have seen it. And I'm an average person, but I've got a little bit of skill. The United States government put a little bit of money in me, and I was able to, what I saw, I could draw a picture. I mean, it etched in my mind what I saw. And like I said, again, I did not feel threatened. But when you guys asked me about what it smelled like, it's funny you guys said that because I didn't say anything about it because it stunk. It smelled worse than a dead skunk, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think that's more of a warning. So you've probably been closer to it more than you know.
Yeah, I try not to go over there, if you know what I mean. I don't want to disturb it. If it lives there, it can live there. I don't care.
Right.
It can live there as long as it wants.
It sounds like to me, Joe, that you've got these things crawling around there, maybe trying to get at your livestock or your horses or your chickens still. Do you think that electric fence keeps them at bay?
I mean, the electric fence will put a horse down. I mean, I'm running some pretty hot voltage there. I run a 60-mile fence charger on 11 acres. So it's pretty hot. And when I charge it, when I turn it on, it'll make you pee your pants and cry. That's for sure.
Don't drop a horse. I don't want to touch it.
Oh yeah, it'll put them back on their heels real quick, and they learn to stay off of it. I don't know. Like I said, I put the bigger fence up for a reason, and I did it up around the house especially because
Oh yeah,
what I've seen. It is what it is, and
I had a thought, Joe.
Go ahead. Yeah.
What, you showed us that, and for the audience, they're going to be listening to this podcast. We're talking to each other on video, so you can show us your property with the camera, and you've showed us what you're talking about, and hopefully we can get some of those from you, some pictures and whatnot, or videos, whatever you have. Post them on our group page when we release this episode so they can check it out. Where you showed us the beaten down area where there's no grass growing. Looked like something been standing there quite a bit, where that tree branch was cracked and twisted. I wonder if there's something you could put there where you could get some imprints of any kind of steps or footprints to see if there's something that's still coming there and standing around, or if you maybe just made it real muddy.
It's too intelligent.
Yeah,
there's not one footprint. There's not one footprint in any of the sand. I'm a really good tracker. I mean, I'm a really good tracker. I got 22 years, 14 years in the infantry, and I worked in reconnaissance. Everything it's doing, if it's out there, it is good at what it does. It hides for a reason.
Oh yeah.
This isn't something that it isn't just going to leave a trail, not purposely for someone to follow.
Yep. And
I mean, I could show you right here. I've bulldozed all in here. I've never found a footprint in here. Not one. And I look. I mean, I literally look all the time. This, whatever it is, it's that intelligent not to leave sign. And I'm sure they do, but here it's kind of hard, because the undergrowth is the leaf base here is, decades old. I mean, you go out there and that matter is, it's got leaves that are, 10 years that didn't even decay yet. And so it's kind of hard. I think that, I don't know, that's just my impression. I just don't think that it will leave, I don't think it would leave a track like that. And, I think what it was doing was probably going to come and get some water because the water's right here. I don't think because it would have already killed anything, any of the calves, any of the pigs. I don't think that it's that type of a being. I just don't think that it's. I think there's too much opportunity out here for dead animals. If it's going to be, that it can take deer at any time. It's not going to come and get my cow when it's probably who knows what it. I don't know what it eats. Probably roots, berries, whatever. But I mean, there's enough feed out here that I leave in the troughs that it wouldn't need to have to kill anything.
I'm sure you got a lot of deer around there too. So
exactly, and who knows? I can't tell you. I don't know what it eats. It didn't eat me, so I guess, and it didn't eat my horses, and I haven't had any You know what I mean? I haven't had any odd stuff. I've had chickens. I've had a lot of chickens taken. And I've had the door open, and I know damn well I locked it. And I've had other people lock it and, come out and the door's open and the chickens are scattered all over at night. And it's like, after getting, you go around and pick them all up, put them back in the coop. And it's like, then you'll have one that's taking eggs. I get probably 3 or 4 dozen of eggs a day. And I've had it to where there's no eggs in my chicken coop. And, I always wondered, what the heck happened there? Somebody come and get some, and it's possible, but you got to drive half a mile up my driveway, come through 3 gates to get to my place, and then if you're coming here to steal eggs, you know what I mean? I don't think that's what you're doing. You've got to get through barbed wire and electric fence to even get to my property, to even get to the house. So. I don't know, fellas.
I still think
it's interesting.
I still think one of those Bigfoot creatures you got roaming around have definitely probably touched that fence and got a good shot, and that's probably.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I'm sure. And I sat here. I sat here, and I think about this, and I mean, I can walk the whole property with you guys and look around. I mean, I look for tracks just to see. I always look to see if there's any type of track.
Joe, if we could get in touch with you and you can send us any pictures you have or whatnot again and come up and take a look around, we'd really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, we'd love to come up.
Yeah, no worries.
In the meantime, if anything happens or you see something, let us know.
You have a good evening. And
hey, you too.
Thank you, Joe.
All
Thank you for taking the time, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Joe. Thanks again.
Yep, take care, guys.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to get up there and see what's going on in that area up in his place.
For sure.
I wonder if it has something to do with his livestock or something like that. Again, that area is...
It sounds like it's perfect for that. I mean, he's got the watering, he's got the chickens, he's got the,
Yeah, we'll get up there and check it out for sure, man.
Yeah, we will.
It was good hanging out with you again. Till next time, I will talk to you later, brother.
Yep.